Every Rolex in the catalog is a great watch. That's not the same as saying every Rolex is right for you. The difference between those two sentences is what this video is about. So, watch it before you buy. The Oyster Perpetual, the one they'll actually sell you. Walk into most authorized dealers today and ask for a Submariner. The answer is a wait list, a polite relationship conversation, and a gentle suggestion that you might want to start somewhere else. They're not being difficult. That's the system. So start here with the purest object Rolex makes. No complication, no date, no bezel function, just the Oyster case and a dial. The 41mm runs the caliber 3230, the same movement architecture that powers the Submariner. You're not buying a lesser movement. You're buying fewer features wrapped around the same mechanical core. The 41mm retails at $7,050. For 2026, Rolex built the centennial of the Oyster case directly into the collection. A slate 100 years dial on a two-tone roll-sore model. Yellow gold reserved for the bezel and crown, steel throughout the bracelet. A two-tone configuration that doesn't exist anywhere else in the current lineup. If you want the sentimental Rolex, the one with the most direct bloodline to 1926, this is the one. Standard dials trade at or near retail on the secondary market. Specific dial variants, the stone marker versions, the graphic dials, carry genuine premiums. But that's not why you buy this watch. You buy it because it does everything a Rolex is supposed to do, at a price below most of its siblings, sitting comfortably in a boutique case waiting for you. The Oyster Perpetual is the watch Rolex will actually let you own. That's not a criticism. That's the most honest thing you can say about it. There's a 22-year-old in Melbourne right now who just bought one in slate blue. She's wearing it every day and treating it like what it is, a tool for people who take timekeeping seriously. She's not wrong. She's probably right. And that matters more than it sounds. The Oyster Perpetual has outlasted trends, recessions, and 3 generations of collectors who insisted it wasn't enough watch for the money. It's still here, still selling, still the object Rolex points to when someone asks where everything started. The watch that invented the waterproof wristwatch in 1926 is still the one you can walk in and buy today without a conversation about purchase history or relationship tiers. There's an argument to be made that this is the most Rolex thing about Rolex. The foundation is still standing and still available. But the moment you add a date window and a bezel option, something shifts. The date doesn't just look different from the Oyster Perpetual. It behaves differently in the market. The Datejust configuration is everything. Introduced in 1945, the Datejust was the first self-winding wristwatch to display the date in a window at 3 o'clock. Hans Wilsdorf demonstrated it publicly at the Geneva Motor Show that year. The design hasn't fundamentally changed since. Here's where most buyers go wrong. They walk in, see the Datejust wall, 31mm, 36mm, 41mm, dozens of dial colors, smooth bezel, fluted bezel, Oyster bracelet, Jubilee bracelet. They choose by aesthetics alone, which is fine, but aesthetics and capital behavior aren't the same conversation. A Datejust 41 inches Oyster steel with a fluted white gold bezel and Jubilee bracelet retails at approximately $11,650. That's the configuration that holds on the secondary market. Trades close to retail, sometimes above it. The Jubilee bracelet was designed for the Datejust in 1945, the same year the watch launched, and that pairing reads as intentional rather than assembled. Collectors can tell the difference. A smooth bezel Datejust on an Oyster bracelet, perfectly capable watch, trades below retail, not because it's mechanically worse, because it reads as generic, and the secondary market prices perception as consistently as it prices steel. A man I know spent $11,000 on a smooth bezel Datejust in 2022. He sold it 18 months later for $9,200. His colleague bought the fluted Jubilee configuration the same week. She still has hers. It's worth more than she paid. The caliber 3235 runs the 36mm and 41mm date models. Perpetual rotor, parachrom hairspring, 70 hours of power reserve. The movement is beyond reproach. The question is always which case you put it in. Buy the configuration, not just the name. And one more thing that nobody mentions about the Datejust. It's the only model in the Rolex sports and dress range where you can walk into an authorized dealer today in 2026 and leave with the watch you actually want on your wrist. No waitlist conversation. No relationship history required. The date just is available. That's not a flaw in the model. In a catalog where the most desirable references carry 5-year queues, the ability to actually own what you're paying for is worth something. Worth more than most buyers account for until they've been told no 3 times. The date just rewards the buyer who does their homework. The next watch rewards the buyer who doesn't need to. The Explorer 1, the watch that doesn't ask anything of you. In May 1953, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary reached the summit of Everest. They wore Rolex Oysters. Rolex launched the Explorer the same year, though the exact watches on Hillary's wrist remain a point of collector debate that hasn't been settled cleanly. What isn't debated is what the Explorer became, the cleanest dial in the Rolex catalog. 3, 6, 9 at the relevant positions. Painted markers. No date on the 36mm. No bezel function on either size. The 40mm added a date window when it launched in 2021, which split the collector community. The purists preferred the 36mm without it. Both arguments are reasonable, and both watches are still in production. This watch retails at $8,450. It trades near retail. It doesn't generate wait lists at most authorized dealers. You can frequently walk in and walk out the same day. That accessibility is the Explorer's underrated quality. The secondary market for sports, Rolex went through a genuine correction after the peak of 2021 and 2022. Steel Submariners that touched $18,000 then trade between $13,500 and $14,500 today. The Explorer never spiked to those heights, so it never had those heights to fall from. Powered by the caliber 3230, it is water-resistant to 100 meters. It has Paraflex shock absorption and is superlative chronometer certified. Everything Rolex builds into its sports range, inside a watch that most people at a dinner table won't immediately place as expensive. That last part matters more to some people than others. For the buyer who wants a serious tool watch without wearing a status signal, this is the answer. And honestly, the Explorer is the one I keep coming back to when someone asks what they should actually buy for daily wear. There's something to be said for a watch that gets out of its own way. There's also a version of the Explorer story that the watch community doesn't fully agree on. Whether the 40mm with the date complication belongs in the same sentence as the 36mm without it. The 36mm no-date purists argue the complication adds nothing functional and disrupts the visual architecture. The 40mm buyers argue size and date functionality are real-world considerations. Neither camp is wrong. Both are right about different things, which tells you everything you need to know about where the Explorer sits in the catalog. It's a watch serious enough that collectors have opinions about it, accessible enough that you can actually own one. The Explorer is the quiet answer. The GMT is the one with a story that starts at 30,000 feet. The GMT Master 22 time zones one very long waitlist. Pan Am Flight 001 first flew the polar route from New York to London in 1954. Rolex developed the GMT Master in collaboration with the airline during that period, and the watch officially launched in 1955. The original had a 24-hour hand and a rotating bezel. Every GMT since has been built around that idea. The current GMT Master 2 runs the caliber 3285, a true flyer GMT. You can adjust the local hour hand in 1-hour increments without stopping the movement. You don't pull the crown to the second position and restart the watch every time you cross a time zone. You set local time by turning the crown. The movement keeps running. That distinction matters when you're actually using the function rather than admiring it. The lineup right now. The Batman is the blue and black ceramic bezel reference, Ref 126710 BLNR, the volume reference in oyster steel on Jubilee or oyster bracelet. The Batgirl is the Batman on a Jubilee bracelet specifically. The Bruce Wayne Ref 126710 GRNR is the same steel case with a gray and black Cerachrom bezel, a subtler red, introduced at Watches and Wonders 2024. The Sprite runs green and black. The Guinness nickname belongs to the two-tone yellow, gold, and steel version Ref 126713 GRNR, not to the Bruce Wayne. The community distinguishes them clearly, and it's worth knowing the difference before you're standing in a gray market dealer's showroom. All steel GMT references retail around $10,700. None are easy to acquire at that price. The Batman carries approximately a 5-year waitlist at authorized dealers. The Bruce Wayne, being newer, is somewhat more accessible for now. That won't last. Gray market prices for the Batman have compressed from 2022 peaks, but remain significantly above retail. For the buyer who travels seriously, or simply wants the most historically grounded Rolex sports watch, this is the family. Know what you're walking into. There's a particular kind of buyer the GMT Master 2 attracts, the person who wants a watch that does something, not just something decorative, something functional. The Flyer GMT complication, the ability to track 2 time zones without stopping the movement, is the kind of feature that sounds like marketing until you're in a Tokyo hotel room at 2 a.m. trying to remember what time it is in London, and you realize the answer is already on your wrist. That buyer exists. If you're that buyer, no other Rolex makes the same argument. The GMT tracks time zones. The next watch was built for people who live under the water. The Submariner, the most imitated watch ever made. In 1953, Rolex released the first Submariner, rated to 100 meters. Every dive watch that came after it, from Omega to Tudor to every fashion brand that's ever put a unidirectional bezel on a steel case, started from this template. The Submariner didn't just define a category, it became the category. The current no-date version, Ref 124060, runs the caliber 3230 and retails at $10,050. The date version, Ref 126610 LN, carries the caliber 3235 and retails at $10,250. The green bezel Kermit successor runs $10,800. The no date has a devoted collector following for a specific reason. Without the date complication, the dial achieves perfect geometric symmetry. No Cyclops lens interrupting the crystal at 3 o'clock. No date wheel visible between 3 and 4. Just the dial, the markers, the hands, and the 60-click unidirectional Cerachrom bezel. Enough people prefer that look, that the no date consistently holds its value slightly better as a percentage of retail than the date version. Not dramatically, enough to matter. Water resistant to 300 meters, Triplock triple waterproofness system on the crown, glide lock extension clasp on the Oyster bracelet, letting you fine adjust the fit by approximately 20 millimeters without tools, built for professional diving, almost never used that way. Usually bought by people who like knowing it could be. And here's the truth about the Submariner that most guides don't say plainly. Most people who own one never go near the water wearing it. They buy it because it's the most recognizable luxury watch on Earth, because it sat on Sean Connery's wrist in Doctor. No, in 1962 is the first confirmed Bond watch, and because it holds its value in a way that makes a purchase feel like something closer to a savings account. The secondary market sits between $13,500 and $14,500 for the standard no date. That's a correction from peak. It's also still 35% over retail. Budget 2 to 4 years at an authorized dealer. The gray market solves the time problem and charges you accordingly. Picture the buyer who goes gray market for a Submariner. He pays $14,000 for a watch that retails at $10,000. He knows what he paid. He knows why. He wears it every day, doesn't track the secondary price anymore, and 3 years later finds out it's worth $15,000. The premium he paid at purchase didn't hurt him. The gray market premium can be an entry cost rather than a loss if you buy carefully and don't expect to flip it immediately. That's a different calculation than most buyers run, and it's worth running. The Submariner goes in the water. The Sea Dweller was built for people who actually live down there. The Sea Dweller and Deep Sea, when depth becomes engineering. Professional divers don't wear Submariners, they wear Sea Dwellers. The distinction is 300 meters of water resistance versus 1,500 on the standard Sea Dweller, and 3,900 on the Deep Sea. The Sea Dweller launched in 1967, developed in collaboration with Comex, the French professional diving company, for saturation divers who spend weeks living in pressurized underwater habitats. At those depths, Helium molecules migrate into the case through seals during extended submersion. The helium escape valve at 9 o'clock on the Sea Dweller lets those molecules exit during decompression ascent without blowing the crystal off the case. It's not a feature added for marketing texture. It solved an actual problem that cost divers their watches. Comex divers logged more than 200 experimental dives with Rolex watches between the mid-60s and the 90s. The Sea Dweller's development was iterative. The Submariner, rated to 300 meters, became the 600-meter prototype, became the tested and certified production model at 1500. Rolex didn't build this watch by extrapolating from a spec sheet. They built it by going underwater with people whose lives depended on the equipment working. Most buyers will never encounter a saturation diving application, but they're wearing the result of one, and that provenance changes how the watch feels on the wrist if you know it. The current ref, 126600, retails at $12,350. 43 millimeters is the primary reason some buyers walk past it. Not everyone wants that size on their wrist for daily wear, and the Sea Dweller doesn't compromise on its dimensions to accommodate them. It was built for a specific purpose. The purpose left its shape on the watch. The Deepsea Ref 136660 takes the engineering to its logical extreme. 44 millimeters, a ring lock system inside the case for structural integrity at serious depth. A nitrogen-oxygen gas mixture resistance rating built into its architecture. Retail at $15,650. For most buyers, the engineering far exceeds any conceivable real-world use case. That's fine. It's also an extraordinary object. Secondary market velocity on both is moderate. Large case sizes limit the audience relative to the Submariner, but for the buyer who wants the most technically credible dive watch in the Rolex catalog, this is where the list ends. Consider a naval architect who bought the Deepsea in 2019 simply because he read about the ring lock system and wanted to own the object. He's never dived deeper than 12 meters in his life. He wears it twice a week to the office. Doesn't care. The engineering is the point. That's a legitimate way to own a watch, and it's worth knowing this family serves that buyer as well as any other. From the ocean floor to something that's never seen the ocean, the Land Dweller is the most technically significant Rolex release in years. The Land Dweller, Rolex's first new escapement in decades. In April 2025, during Watches and Wonders in Geneva, Rolex puts a watch on the table that nobody expected. The Land Dweller isn't a restyled existing model. It's 32 patent applications and a movement that changes how Rolex thinks about timekeeping. The caliber 7,135 runs at 5 Hz, 36,000 beats per hour. Every other watch in the current Rolex sports catalog runs at 4 Hz. That extra beat means the 7,135 can measure time to a tenth of a second. It's the first Rolex movement to use the Dynapulse escapement, a direct impulse design derived from patents dating back to 2010, with a 2025 patent listing Dr. Fabiano Colpo as inventor. The Dynapulse reduces friction losses significantly over the traditional Swiss lever escapement. 66 hours of power reserve, silicon components throughout for magnetic resistance. The movement is an evolution of the caliber 7,140, first seen in the 1908 model, substantially developed into something new. The case borrows angular lugs from the oyster quartz era of the 70s and 80s. A new 5-link flat Jubilee bracelet flows from case to clasp without interruption. A sapphire caseback shows the movement, a first for a steel Rolex sports watch. The dial is a laser-etched honeycomb motif cut directly into the surface, not printed, not applied. Retail in Rolzor, steel with white gold bezel, starts at $14,900 for the 40 millimeters. The 36 millimeters in steel and white gold runs just below that. Precious metal versions climb steeply, $63,500 in platinum, higher with diamonds. The Land Dweller is the only Rolex where you're primarily paying for the movement and the engineering rather than the status of the model name. The secondary market is still finding its floor. Early launch premiums have been compressing as dealer allocations spread through the first full production year. The buyer who waits 6 months gets a cleaner deal than the buyer who paid a premium to be first. That pattern has held for every new Rolex family introduction in recent memory. The Land Dweller is what Rolex looks like when it stops optimizing and starts inventing. The Sky Dweller is what Rolex looks like when it builds a complication nobody else would attempt. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. The Sky Dweller 6 Complications, 1 watch. It has got 6 complications. Annual calendar that automatically distinguishes 30-day months from 31-day months. Dual time zone via an off-center rotating disc. All controlled through a mechanism where the bezel itself becomes the selector. Rotate the fluted ring command bezel to click between the 3 crown functions. Position 1 sets the reference time. Position 2 adjusts local time. Position 3 handles date and month. The caliber 9002 inside is manufactured entirely in-house. Rolex doesn't buy this movement from a supplier. The Saros annual calendar mechanism, named after the astronomical cycle used to predict eclipses, was developed from scratch. You only need to correct the date at the end of February, once per year. Every other month, adjustment happens automatically. It retails in oyster steel starting around $18,900. Buy it in steel. Gold models carry retail premiums that erode on the secondary market. You pay a steep precious metal markup going in and absorb the depreciation going out. Here's a comparison that most guides skip. A Patek Philippe annual calendar, which does approximately the same calendar trick, starts at roughly $40,000 at retail and trades above that. The Sky Dweller does it for less than $19,000 in steel. The Patek is a different watch with different craft behind it. But for a buyer evaluating complication versus cost, the Sky Dweller is significantly better value than its position in the Rolex lineup suggests. The collector community hasn't fully caught up to that yet. Secondary market velocity is moderate. The audience is smaller than the submariners. But the buyer who actually uses an annual calendar and travels across time zones regularly gets more mechanical value per dollar from the Sky Dweller than from almost anything else in this catalog. The Sky Dweller answers every complication you might actually use. The Daytona answers a very different question, one that starts on a racetrack in 1963. The Cosmograph Daytona, the most wanted watch in the world. Paul Newman had one, not because Rolex gave it to him. His wife Joanne Woodward bought it for him and had the case back engraved. "Drive carefully me." In 2017, that specific watch sold at Phillips auction for $17.8 million. The most expensive wristwatch ever auctioned at the time. The Daytona is a chronograph, a stopwatch integrated into a wristwatch. The pushers at 2 and 4 o'clock start, stop, and reset elapsed time. The tachymeter scale on the bezel converts elapsed seconds to average speed over a known distance. It was designed for motorsport timing in the early 60s, named after Daytona International Speedway, and spent most of that decade as a slow seller. The most imitated chronograph face in history had a period where Rolex seriously considered discontinuing it. Dealers couldn't move them. The exotic dial variants, the ones now worth 6 figures at auction, sat unsold in cases for years. The collectors who bought them didn't know they were buying icons. They bought them because they were affordable and nobody else wanted them. That's the actual story behind the most coveted watch in the world. The caliber 4131 inside the current steel. Daytona is Rolex's own manufacture chronograph movement. Vertical clutch for smooth activation, column wheel for precise pusher feel, 72 hours of power reserve. It took 8 years to develop after Rolex decided to replace the supplied Zenith El Primero that had powered the previous generation. For 2026, the Ref 126502 Rolesium Daytona arrives on the exceptional watches page rather than the standard catalog. Oyster steel case, platinum bezel, white Grand Few enamel dial fired onto ceramic plates rather than metal, anthracite cerachrom bezel enriched with tungsten carbide, and a sapphire exhibition caseback. It's the third Daytona ever to show its movement through the back. Its placement on the Exceptional Watches page tells you everything you need to know about its availability. Standard steel Daytona retails at $16,900. It trades at a premium that has compressed from the extraordinary heights of 2021, when white dial Panda versions were clearing at roughly 2.5 times retail. The market has normalized. But normalized for the Daytona still means gray market prices significantly above retail. The authorized dealer waitlist is approximately 5 years. So, the Daytona is the finest chronograph in the Rolex catalog, the most historically layered watch on this list, and the one that most buyers will never acquire at retail. If you want one, price the gray market against current watch charts data before you commit. The spread moves, and you should buy into it with current numbers, not numbers from 6 months ago. The buyer who waits for the AD waitlist to clear is buying in a different decade. The Daytona is the apex of what Rolex makes for the wrist. The day date is the apex of what Rolex makes for the image. The day date. The Watch President's War. Dwight Eisenhower received one in 1956. Lyndon Johnson ordered multiple in different metals. Martin Luther King Jr. wore one on the march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. The day date has been on the wrists of heads of state and chief executives since the year it launched, and Rolex has never been shy about that history. The President Bracelet, the three-piece semicircular link design, takes its name from it. Launched in 1956, it was the first watch to display both the day of the week spelled out in full and the date. It's offered exclusively in precious metal, 18-karat yellow, white, or Everose gold, or 950 platinum. You cannot buy a day date in steel. That's not an oversight. It's a deliberate market position that Rolex has held for nearly 70 years without blinking. For 2026, Rolex introduced Jubilee Gold, a new proprietary 18-karat formulation available initially in the day date 40. The Ref 28235 JG carries a green aventurine dial. The day date 40 inches standard yellow gold starts around $40,000. At the top of the 2026 standard catalog, a diamond pavé day date, 36 at $98,100. Here's what most buyers need to hear before writing the check. Standard solid gold day dates depreciate on the secondary market, not catastrophically, but clearly and consistently. The precious metal markup built into the retail price isn't recovered in resale. Gold is valued by weight and purity in the secondary market, and Rolex's craftsmanship premium doesn't fully translate to that equation. So the move for the day date buyer is pre-owned. Let someone else absorb the initial depreciation. You get the same watch, the same caliber 3255, the same instantaneous day disc jump at midnight, the same President Bracelet, for significantly less than retail. But if you're buying the day date, you probably aren't buying it as a capital asset. You're buying the statement. That's a perfectly honest reason to own a watch. Just know which reason you're buying for. Every watch on this list has told you something about who you are when you wear it. The Yachtmaster is the one the community has argued about for 30 years. The Yachtmaster and Why, 2026, changed the argument. The Yachtmaster launched in 1992. It had a rotating bezel, a nautical theme, and a positioning that puzzled the watch community for decades. It wasn't a professional diving instrument like the Submariner. It wasn't a racing chronograph like the Daytona. It was a yacht racing adjacent luxury sports watch built for buyers who wanted Rolex's sports aesthetic without the functional constraints of the more serious tool models. The collector community was, to put it diplomatically, not uniformly enthusiastic. Then, Watches and Wonders 2026 happened. Rolex redesigned the Yachtmaster 2 from the ground up, the first meaningful update since 2017, with new counterclockwise bidirectional hands, a revised regatta countdown mechanism, and updated case architecture. The Ref, 126,680 inches. Oyster steel retails at $20,300. The Caliber 4161 inside the I/O is a genuine mechanical achievement. The regatta countdown lets a sailor program a count from 1 to 10 minutes before a race start, with a programmable countdown that resets via the pushers without stopping the watch. It's the kind of mechanism that requires significant engineering for a use case that most buyers will never employ. Whether that's a reason to admire it or a reason to question the retail price depends entirely on who you are. The standard Yachtmaster 1, in titanium with the distinctive Oysterflex bracelet, has a devoted following among buyers who want something lighter and more visually distinctive than the mainstream sports models. Secondary market velocity on Yachtmasters has historically been moderate, lower premiums than the GMT or Sub, higher availability at dealers. The 2026 redesign of the II has already shifted that conversation. Whether the new version builds the community the original never quite did is the question the next 2 years will answer. So, what are you actually buying? Here's what most guides don't say plainly. The Rolex catalog isn't a shopping menu. It's a set of decisions that reveal something about what kind of collector you want to be. The buyer who picks the Oyster Perpetual and wears it every day for 20 years makes no mistake. The buyer who finances a gray market Daytona at double retail because they couldn't wait for the AD makes a different kind of decision. Neither is wrong in absolute terms. But one of them understands what they're doing, and one of them is hoping the market agrees with them. Steel holds better than gold in this catalog. Complications you'll actually use beat complications you'll explain at dinner parties. The watch that fits your wrist and your life will outlast the one that looks right on a spec sheet. One move the data consistently supports: buy the configuration that fits the iconic version of the model. Fluted Jubilee on the Datejust, dial symmetry of the no-date Submariner, steel on the Sky Dweller. And if you want the Daytona or the GMT, price the gray market against current watch charts data before you decide whether the waitlist is worth the wait. There's something else that doesn't get said enough. The Rolex you wear every day for a decade becomes something different from what it was when you bought it. It accumulates context. The strap wears in. The bezel fades slightly on the older ceramic-free references. Your relationship with the watch changes because you've lived in it, not just owned it. That transformation doesn't happen with a watch that sits in a box waiting for the right occasion. Buy the watch you'll wear. The secondary market will take care of itself if you do. The Rolex crown doesn't guarantee anything. The right reference does. There's a difference. In 2026, with a new escapement in the Land Dweller, a new gold alloy in the Day-Date, and a market still finding its equilibrium after 3 years of correction, is a good year to understand it before you spend. Drop your shortlist in the comments. Which family did you land on, and are you buying retail or gray? I want to know. Like this video and subscribe.